And I think focus ultrasound is going to do to the medical community what the invention of the X-ray did a century ago. And I think you're going to see the same thing for this whole paradigm shift in non-invasive therapies that's going to arise from the emergence of focus ultrasound technologies onto the scene.
Welcome to Curing with Sound, a podcast presented by the Focus Ultrasound Foundation. I'm your host, Allison Preston Smith. Eli Vlaisavljevich, associate professor in the Department of Biomedical Engineering at Virginia Tech, is a leading expert in using histotripsy to treat a variety of diseases and conditions, including human and animal tumors and cancers of the liver, kidney, pancreas, breast, and brain. He was part of the team at Histosonics and the University of Michigan that developed the Edison Histotripsy device to treat liver tumors. The device was approved by the FDA in 2023, expanding the accessibility of this life-saving treatment for patients with liver cancer. Vlaisavljevich has authored or co-authored more than 70 papers in leading journals, has multiple patents, has given more than 10 invited talks at international universities, and has been part of research teams that have received roughly $16 million in external funding, with roughly $5 million specifically for his lab. He's also the recipient of more than 25 awards for his research and instruction. Welcome to the podcast, Eli.
Thank you. Really appreciate having me. Look forward to talking to you today.
So let's first talk about histotripsy. Can you briefly explain what it is?
Yes, absolutely. So histotripsy is the first completely non-invasive and non-thermal ablation method for treating cancer. So it uses focus ultrasound pulses to generate what we refer to as a cavitation bubble cloud. So by using very short, high-pressure sound waves, we generate these cavitation bubbles that rapidly expand and collapse and non-thermally destroy a tissue really into an acellular debris. So you're basically taking a tumor, liquefying the cells, killing all the cancer cells. And some of the unique features of histotripsy are that it can preserve different types of tissue structure. So we can treat a tumor while preserving blood vessels, nerves, bile ducts. So there's a lot of advantages in addition to being image-guided and non-invasive. That we can really develop it as an improved therapy for a lot of different disorders, starting with cancer, but moving on to many others as well.
How did you get started in this area of study?
So I am a biomedical engineer by training, and I chose biomedical engineering because I did not want to make any decisions when I was entering college. I loved this. I'm somebody who is inherently against specialization. I love the different areas of science. And so biomedical engineering was an area that I was thinking, wow, this is great. I always say Da Vinci would be a biomedical engineer because you can do design work and you can then work with patients. And it's kind of like the polymaths of old. I feel like be attracted to how interdisciplinary the biomedical engineering field is. So I kind of chose the field because I didn't want to hyper specialize in anything. And as an undergraduate student, I got really interested in research. I started doing biomaterials research. Loved it. I was at Michigan Tech, which had a great environment for undergraduate students to get involved in research, which is something that we continue to have in our lab now. And I really prioritize that in addition to our graduate students. But then as I was getting to my senior year, we had a guest seminar speaker come in who was friends with my undergraduate advisor, and her name was Shen Zhu. And she's one of the core inventors of histotripsy. And she came and showed an example of a histotripsy transducer boring a hole non-invasively through a piece of heart tissue. And I was instantly hooked. I have a background because of, like many people, I've lost family members to cancer and other disorders. And this just the thought of being able to do a therapy that non-invasively destroys a tumor. I was hooked instantly, and I kind of begged her to come let me go do grad school with her. And it was, the rest is history. And I've really enjoyed it. Every step of the way. It has everything you might want in a profession, very great collaborators, a lot of different experts have to come all together. So really what I wanted from the biomedical engineering field is something I've really gotten through working in focus ultrasound and in particular in histotripsy for a lot of different applications.
What was the first disease or condition that you focused on when researching histotripsy?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I have to think about this. So I have two separate answers. My first answer is liver cancer, and maybe I'll come back to that, but because that was really where a lot of my PhD was centered around. But the honest answer is kind of everything. So when I started as a graduate student, the first project I did was say, let's take every tissue in the body and see what we can do. This was a brand new technology at the time. What can we treat with histotripsy? And we saw that we can treat almost all the organs in the body, with the exception of very fibrous or mineralized tissues like cartilage, bone, vessels. More recently, we've shown we can even do things like fibrous tissue under certain parameters. But I was very interested in the platform nature of the technology as a whole. But because I had Jen is my research advisor, and she did a great job of saying, you need to get focused. You're in a focus ultrasound lab, for crying out loud. You need to focus on one application. And having, my mom died of liver cancer, and so that was just something I was individually passionate about. So, and that was the first oncology application that histotripsy has now been developed for. So my PhD was really exploring, can histotripsy be used to non-invasively target the liver, some of the tissue selectivity aspects that I mentioned earlier. And then we were able to see this now translate through various levels of preclinical development, including small and large animal studies. And then it is now advanced into human trials and with FDA approval last year. So it's been a great first application and kind of a roadmap for how we're approaching other clinical applications that my lab's now developing. One of the most rewarding parts now is that we have a lot of these examples in our lab, collaborative teams, students in our lab who have sadly lost family members, joined our team to say, like Jessica Gannon, for instance, working on pancreatic cancer, took it all, same process, bench to bedside in partnership with Histotripsy. They're leading the Gannon trial now, named after her father. And so seeing that whole process has been really rewarding. And it's a good reminder of, for all of us, and we have long days in the lab, about why we're doing things and really focusing on the patients first.
And you helped develop the prototype for Histosonic's Edison Histotripsy device for liver tumors. So what was it like to see the adoption of this technology after its FDA approval?
It's been really exciting. I mean, obviously, I haven't been through this process yet. So this is the first time that we've seen histotripsy get out to patients for any applications. And to see how quickly the clinical community has adopted this, the number of patients being treated, and the really exciting results that were coming. I think we're still very early stage on understanding the actual role histotripsy is going to have on treating cancer. Because so far we've shown that histotripsy can safely ablate tumors. So it can be used to non-invasively destroy a tumor. But a lot of what we're seeing is that there's radiologists, there's surgeons, there's different clinical users that are using the device. Even though it's all for the treatment of tumors within the liver, they're using it for different type of liver tumors and really different goals, whether it's an early stage patient who would normally get ablation with more of a curative intent versus later stage patient where it's there's a paper out recently from one of the clinical sites on using this as a bridge to transplant. There's a lot of excitement based on preclinical and early clinical results around inducing an immune response. And I think there's a lot of research left to be had to fully optimize all the parameters to unleash the full potential of this technology. So it's really an exciting time for the field that we've gotten through, I think, one of the major hurdles, which is showing that it can be safe and effective at treating human patients. And now what we've been talking about for years is the potential of this technology is finally going to have the opportunity to be explored in the clinical setting and matched with preclinical studies to really drive this process faster. Because we know, even though there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of patients who still, aren't able to receive the therapy. I get emails every day from patients who have breast cancer or brain cancers, and it's always heartbreaking. And that's what drives a lot of what we're doing. But to actually have an answer on liver right now that yes, this is available is it's amazing.
And you've also focused on how histotripsy can be used to treat pancreatic cancer, which has the highest mortality rate of all major cancers. How has histotripsy disrupted the treatment of this disease?
Yeah, absolutely. Pancreatic cancer is one of the the most devastating cancers that we have, and there's a lot of challenges for treating the pancreas. So far, we've really focused on, can histotripsy be used at all for pancreatic cancer? And it's been really promising results in our preclinical studies, and this has advanced to a phase 1 human trial. And the way we're visioning it is similar to how we're approaching liver cancer. Is there's potentially different roles for different types of patients. So could histotripsy be used to treat a primary tumor or metastatic tumors as more of an ablative outcome for, let's say, patients who aren't candidates for surgery? And the truth is we don't really have the answer yet, but more than likely when you talk about pancreas or brain cancer, it's going to be part of a combination therapy approach for these very aggressive tumors. So that's why in our lab, even though the primary work in our lab is that we're really biomedical engineering, device focused, developing better tools for targeting the pancreas non-invasively, as well as endoscopic histotripsy devices or surgical histotripsy devices that might be used and deployed in different ways. But even though that's a big focus for us, we also have a great collaboration with Dr. Coy Allen. He's an immunologist who also has an expertise in developing animal models. And his lab is really leading these kind of questions of like, what's the systemic effects of histotripsy in pancreas? What are the parameters we should use to get the most kind of immune modulation? So that's where I ultimately see this work going, is that you're going to have a therapy that can be used in many ways. And hopefully, if we do our job right, you'll have a series of different devices that, whether it's a surgeon, a radiologist, maybe a radiation oncologist, they all have different versions of the device based on the needs of their patient. So we can deliver histotripsy to the pancreas and other organs more precisely, more tissue selectively, and ultimately give better long-term benefits for patients, not only in survival, but also in quality of life, which is, as you can imagine, extremely important for what these patients are going through with the current therapies.
I think one of the most interesting fields that you're using histotripsy in is in the veterinary field. So what are some conditions you're able to treat in animals?
Yeah, we love our pets and cats, dogs, horses. So we have a lot of veterinary applications, and one of the most rewarding parts of the job at Virginia Tech is to get to work with our amazing veterinary team here. So we've done a lot of different veterinary clinical trials, and we have more that are now on the horizon, including some the Focus Ultrasound Foundation just funded that we're going to get up and running soon. So the majority, I would say the biggest application we focused on are musculoskeletal tumors. So we've done multiple veterinary clinical trials for the treatment of soft tissue sarcomas. That's an active area of growth for us right now. So these large superficial tumors that primarily form in dogs, but we've also done some trials in cats with injection site sarcomas. And then another type of musculoskeletal tumor that we've treated more than, I think, 70 some dogs in various clinical trials are bone cancers. So osteosarcoma, these are really challenging targets because the tumors are forming in the bone. So we started with treat and resect studies where they're getting their standard of care limb amputations, but we're doing histotripsy just to see if it worked and if we could do it safely. And we've now followed up with treat and leave trials. So looking at, can we minimize pain in that affected limb after treatment? Are we effective at killing all of the tumor within the bone? And so we're very excited about the results of that trial. And going forward, we really want to develop histotripsy as well as other types of focused ultrasound for actual veterinary patients. And some of the other applications that we are now working on. Oh, I should mention we've done a brain cancer trial as well. That was only in 3 dogs to start, but very exciting initial results. And that's an open study like those other 2 I mentioned remain open on new research we're currently doing. But newer studies that we're just about to start, we have a funded project that we're working on for treating sarcoids in horses. So that's a unique application because we can't put the horses under anesthesia on our usual surgical table. So we have a great group of students and faculty working on designing wearable histotripsy devices that can strap on to the horse to treat the sarcoma. We have an oral tumor project in dogs that is getting underway, canine lipoma. Dr. Adam Maxwell, who co-directs our lab with me here, he's developed a technology called burst wave lithotripsy that's in human clinical trials. And more recently, their group has developed miniaturized systems, and they've done a first veterinary clinical trial in cats, and they want to continue that onwards. So we have another clinical trial planned with an improved version of the device. And I'll just say our ultimate goal is to have a center here that's treating cats, dogs, horses, with all of these therapies, and then ultimately use this One Health model where, these naturally occurring tumors, it really helps us get into human applications faster as well.
You've also used histotripsy as an alternative to chemotherapy for breast cancer treatment, and even received a trailblazing award from the National Institute of Health for your research in this area. So how does that kind of treatment work?
Yeah, breast cancer has other unique features that we have to consider. And so our work really splits into two directions. So, most of the mortality that occurs from breast cancer is actually not from the primary tumor. It's from the metastatic nature of the disease. So we have a big focus on the immunomodulatory effects of histotripsy. So can histotripsy treatment of the breast tumors induce a systemic anti-tumor immune response? So one of the ways we're looking at right now is splitting that into two directions. One is, what are the optimal parameters for inducing immune response? And the second component of that is, what are the optimal systemic therapies, immunotherapy drugs, chemotherapies that could combine with histotripsy for a synergistic approach? On the other side, my Trailblazer Award was actually for the development of nanoparticle-mediated histotripsy, which is a therapy that was started by myself and Yasmin Yüksel-Durmaz, who's a professor. She was at Michigan with me at the time when I was in grad school, and we've continued to collaborate. She's now a full professor at Istanbul Medipol University in Turkey, and she designs really the nanoparticles, and our lab develops this therapy with her. But the way these work are, these can lower the pressure required to deliver histotripsy, and then we can functionalize these nanoparticles to actually target cells specifically. So they can specifically target breast cancer cells, and then we can get, instead of being tissue selective, we can potentially be cell selective for these really diffuse or metastatic diseases. We also have new nanoparticles we're developing with her right now that also encapsulate drugs. So it can be potentially a better, less toxic vehicle for us to deliver histotripsy plus an immunotherapy all at once. And again, this is just trying to improve our arsenal when you talk about really late stage or hard to target. Like, histotripsy has a lot of benefits being image guided, but if you have tumor cells that are infiltrated everywhere in an organ, you're not really able to ablate them. Like, take brain cancer, for example, similar to the breast, but a more extreme case where when you have a really diffuse brain tumor cells that have diffused throughout the brain, we're not going to want to histotripsy a massive region of the brain, kill all the healthy cells along with it. So some of these really next generation therapies with nanoparticles or combination therapies are going to be necessary to expand to the patients who aren't diagnosed until they're already at that really late stage. So that's our hope, is that we have different classes of therapy approaches for different stage patients.
As if you're not busy enough, you have also participated in several trips to Malawi alongside other Virginia Tech faculty and students. What's the goal of these trips?
So the main focus of our work in Malawi originally started, we've taken a few trips now, but it originally started around this idea of democratizing the technology we're working with, because ultimately, we're working on many different projects in the lab for trying to treat cancer throughout the body, but it's not enough to treat cancer everywhere in the body. We need to treat it everywhere in the world, and patients are suffering throughout the world, not just in the US, for instance. And it's even more of a problem in some of these sites because they don't have access to the same clinical care, the same imaging technology. And even though the current focused ultrasound devices that have made it through FDA approval and are being marketed are still very expensive pieces of capital equipment, they're more cost affordable than, let's say, an MRI or these larger systems. Ultimately, what our group believes is that this technology can be scaled down, made portable, cost effective, and we can open this up as a way to treat patients throughout the world. And it doesn't have some of the hurdles of other technologies or surgical approaches to make it to patients in low and middle income countries, as well as countries like ours. So that is something that I had a vision and I was talking about in class, but I don't have networks in Africa. It's not something that I could have actually done myself through the lab.
And how did you make that vision a reality?
Yeah, so I had an undergraduate student in my lab 3 years ago, Mariam Hassan, who's very interested in global health equity. And she got excited about this, met another faculty here, Andy Mulinaire. And Andy has led Team Malawi, which is this big program, has done tons of work in Malawi and other countries in Africa. And so Miriam connected us with him. We took this first trip. She was really focused on developing a portable system for breast cancer. So we were exploring the potential of breast cancer. But on that trip, we realized women's health in general, breast cancer, uterine fibroids, cervical cancer, those are 3 areas that really have an immediate need for treatments along with certain types of sarcomas. So that's become more of our focus now, along with some the recent side project in tuberculosis that has all grown out of this program in Malawi. So our current goal, because of the multiple needs, is to develop the first focused ultrasound center of excellence in Africa. That's our long-term vision. I have 2 new graduate students. So Miriam has joined our team as a graduate student, and 2 others, Ruth Matua and Nathan Sambo, who actually did their undergraduate degree at the Malawi University of Science and Technology, which is our academic partner there. They've also worked closely with the hospitals in Malawi that we're partnering with. So they're doing their PhDs in my lab now, really exploring a lot of the technology ideas. And the vision is they're planning to go back, become faculty members there, and then they will lead our Focus Ultrasound Center there. And ultimately, our goal will be multifaceted. So one will be as quickly as possible, can we bring these novel focus ultrasound therapies as they're approved for use in the US? Can we also bring these devices to Malawi and other countries in Africa to help patients there as well? Number 2 is, can we basically democratize the technology in a way that can be more cost effective and widespread without, that first phase we want to move on, but it's going to require a lot of philanthropic support in order to make it possible. So we want to make this sustainable and develop the technology in a way it could be widely distributed and built by teams in Malawi. And, this can be job creation, new companies that are forming out of Malawi. And then finally, we want to build an educational program there to train engineers, medical doctors on focus ultrasound and related technologies. So that's our long-term vision.
That's incredible. And what's next for you and your lab in 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, the biggest focus of ours right now, I would say, is trying to improve our processes so that we can scale up this technology and get it into veterinary patients and then human patients faster, safer, more effective. So there's a few approaches we're taking. One, we're developing different therapy platforms that can deliver Histotripsy non-invasively from a cart, non-invasively from maybe like a full bedside setup, endoscopically, surgically, portable systems for these different indications that we want to have different ways of, basically a whole set of tools that clinicians can use based on the needs of their patients. And then internally here, we've really been scaling up our team. Virginia Tech as a whole was named Focus Ultrasound Center of Excellence to really represent the vast number of labs that are across campus here. And we have expertise in different types of focus ultrasound. And within our own team, we now have multiple faculty that are trying to establish an engineering, kind of advanced engineering fabrication center so we can take devices all the way into clinical trials before a company comes in and invests so that it can save them money and really, expand the number of indications that they can actually develop technologies for. I'm hoping that now that we have this one FDA approval and more clinical trials going, that we can see more start to happen in parallel for different indications.
And how can listeners keep up with you?
So listeners can reach out to us through our lab websites at Virginia Tech. I think I'm the only Eli with a long last name, so you can find me there, but Eli Vlaisavljevich. I'm accessible by email. We always enjoy connecting with more people in the community. We really view this as a collaborative effort. So whether it's lab tours, questions about the technology, meeting some of our amazing students and faculty who are working on this, we love to connect with people. And that's where a lot of the new ideas and new needs come from. So we appreciate that. And I definitely really appreciate your time today and getting to speak with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been so great to talk to you and so exciting to hear about all the different ways that you and your lab are using Histotripsy.
Awesome. Thank you.
This episode of Curing with Sound has been presented by the Focus Ultrasound Foundation. If you'd like to learn more about Focus Ultrasound or the Foundation, visit our website at fussfoundation.org. You can also sign up for our newsletter and follow us on social media. Be sure to subscribe to the Curing with Sound podcast so you don't miss the latest information about Focus Ultrasound. You can also rate and review the show.